Hey guys, I'm Tim Langston with Red Dog Bushcraft, and today I thought we would talk a little bit about ignition sources for starting fires, and my favorite, the Bic lighter. Now I'm going to show you a couple of things about the Bic lighter that can help you out. So one of the first things is this little hack where on top of the lighter there is a little child safety spring on there. Now children have a hard time with the dexterity and the strength in their fingers to depress that little spring to start the fire. That's why it's on there. We're not children. We're going to take care of our fire. We're going to treat it respectfully, and this is going to be for emergency purposes, so it's going to be kept in a safe area, so we don't need that little safety spring in our way. So what we're going to do is take our multi-tool and the can opener and come right in here between the little wheel, and we're going to pry that spring up, and then just grab hold of that and pull it a little bit to one side and the other. Make sure you hold on to the sides here, the little chrome part, when you do this, so that you don't spread that apart, and just remove that little spring. Now what that does is it makes it much easier to flick your Bic. Now the reason I say to remove that is because in cold environments, we start to lose dexterity in our hands, and the ability to be able to flick that Bic will diminish. Now, when we're teaching cold weather fire lighting, one of our exercises is we take a 5-gallon bucket of ice water and we have the students submerge their hands in that water for 1 minute. And then we give them a Bic lighter and we watch them try to start fire. And they see the difficulty in manipulating something as simple as a Bic lighter. I've actually seen people turn that upside down and go to ignite their tinder, and the proper technique is to come in from the side. But because their hands are cold, they'll finally get it lit, turn it over, and when they ignite that, the flames will come up, and I've seen them actually blister their hands from an improper technique, and we want to avoid all of that. And we want to make it easier to flick that Bic. So removing that little safety feature is key to that. Now there's a lot of different lighters on the market, and there's a couple of disclaimers that people use about the Bic lighter. One of which is if it gets cold, it doesn't work. Well, the easiest way to combat that is carrying one every day and keep it in your pocket next to your skin. If you do that, you're going to keep it warm enough. They don't work in high altitudes. This is true. If you get up way, way high, you can have some problems with the butane. If you're going up that high in altitude on a hike or a trek, you're climbing Mount Everest or something, you might want to keep a different fire starting source with you. I'll give you that one. The other is it getting wet. Now the easiest way to combat that is keeping it dry. You either put it in a little Ziploc bag or you use something like this. This is a little lighter safe. This one's made by Exotac. There's plenty of them on the market. You even see little small floating ones designed for people who recreate out on the water. They have little, you attach your boat key to it, and it has a little buoy, and you can put a lighter inside of it, and it'll cause it to float. But even if it gets wet, it's not done. You can still recover this thing. Now, I've got a little container of water here, and we're just going to drop that in, and you'll notice that it does float. But we'll recover that, dip it down in there, get it good and wet. And the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to shake it off. So try to get as much of the water as you can out of the end of that thing. And then we're going to blow into the end where the fire comes out. Once again, just trying to get as much of that water out as we can. Dry off our hands. and then rotate the wheel backwards a couple of times. That helps to dry it out, because what happens is there's a little ferro rod in here, and that wheel turns and scrapes that ferro rod, and then as we depress the button, the butane comes out and the sparks ignite it. So by turning it backwards, we start to dry that out, and then we just start clicking it, trying to, oh, there it went. And if you get it lit, hold it there for a second and let it dry out. Had to switch hands. All right, and there she's drying out. So just that quick, we've gone from that wet lighter that wouldn't light to one that now we can flick our bic and get that instant gratification that we're looking for. Now, with that said, there's a lot of different lighters on the market. These are very popular with, there's some survival lighters on the market. They're also butane, but they have an electric or a piezo igniter, and they work very well. That's these little torch lighters. They're very popular with people who smoke cigars. They're great, they're refillable, they're usually pretty robust, and I really have nothing negative to say about them. It's a good option. Now, one of the guys that I teach with, he likes the Cricket lighter because it has a little adjustment here in the top that you can adjust the flame from small to large. I really think that's overkill. You really don't need it. I just say he's compensating, but hey, whatever. It does appear clearer in nature, so you can see the fluid level in it a little bit better, but even with the bic, the bottom is clear and you can see in there under light, and you can shake it and you can tell if it has fluid in it. But I will tell you that even when it looks like it's empty, this thing's still got a lot of life left in it. But that's a good sign that if it's your everyday carry, it's time to go ahead and switch it out and put a new one in your pocket. They'll last for many, many fires. One of the old school standbys, and people love these things, are the old Zippos. Come on, baby. You just work for me. But, well, there's an example. Before this video, I tried it and it was working. But the problem with these are you load it down here in the bottom with a liquid fuel. And that's like cotton in the bottom of it that absorbs it. And over time, because this thing's not sealed, it can run out of fluid at the most inconvenient of times, like when you're trying to shoot a video. But they're nice because when they work, you can set it down and it acts like a candle. You can thaw stuff out. You don't have to hold a button down. There's a lot of good attributes about them. But just remember, if you're going to carry the old Zippo, you really need to carry the little tinder that goes along with it. This is fuel, has an extra wick, has the extra wick adjusting tool, has an extra flint in it, and it all comes in this neat little safe that you can carry everything together. So if you're going to commit to carrying the Zippo for your survival, you really need to commit to carrying the little safe or the little toolbox along with it. Now, I was at an event and I was given this little fella, and it goes on your keychain, and I've grown quite fond of this, and it's the same principle as the Zippo, but it has an O-ring here. So the fluid doesn't leak out in it the way the Zippo does. But it's the same thing. There's a little cotton piece in the bottom of it and a little flint in there, and it works on the same principle. But because it has this O-ring, I only have to refill this about once a year if I don't use it a lot. I'm talking about as far as the fluid leaking out of it. It's a cool little gadget, and I don't know, I like it. It's cool. But it's hard to beat the plain old Bic lighter for starting a fire. Just remember, just flicking your Bic is not good enough. What we want to do to get proficient with this is, number one, remember when you go to light your tinder, you need to come in from the side and ignite that tinder, not hold it upside down. It sounds simple, but it's very easy to get in the habit of doing that, especially when it's cold. The other thing is, don't just flick your bic with your dominant hand and using your thumb. You should practice to where you can flick your bic with either finger. The little finger's tough, but not just your dominant hand, but also your non-dominant hand. Why would we want to do this? Well, if we're relying on this as a piece of emergency equipment, we may be injured on one of our hands, and that may be your dominant hand and the one that you're used to flicking your bic with. So get proficient with both hands so that when the time arises, and that's what you're dependent on to get a fire started, you'll be ready for it. You need to practice in advance. All right, that's my spill and my number one method of starting fire, the big lighter. Cost about $2, maybe $3 at different convenience stores. No, you can't fly with them anymore, but most every convenience store sells them. As soon as you get off the plane, they'll have stacks of them, because people who smoke, one of the first things they want to do is reacquire them a big lighter. I found them all over the world, and you shouldn't have a problem accessing one. Keep it until you get ready to fly back home, and when you do, find somebody who's getting off the plane and just tell them, hey, free lighter, anybody want a free bic? And just set it down, and I guarantee you somebody will snap that thing right up in no amount of time at all, and you can pay it forward a little bit and maybe bless them a little bit. All right, that's my take on bic lighters, and that's why I use them as a go-to. Flick your bic, instant gratification. It's hard to beat. Very reliable, very robust. People talk about them leaking. You can combat that by putting it inside of one of those safes, or just taking a rubber band and wrapping underneath this little lever right here so that it can't get depressed if it's in your skinny jeans. And if your lighter is losing its fluid because your jeans are that tight, maybe you ought to reconsider your wardrobe. I'm just saying. It's got to be pretty tight to depress that. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it could happen. There are some hazards with fire. People who do like cutting and welding of steel and metal and all, if this thing was to burn through, it could cause you a lot of problems. But you know what? It's not going to burn through just by just a few seconds of flame impact on this thing. The plastic that's on it, even though it's flammable, is pretty robust. So there are some things that you have to be aware of, and you have to use some caution. With anything related to fire, we need to use some caution and have some common sense. But that's my go-to, and that's the reasons why. Thanks for joining me for this one. I appreciate your views and your support. And until next time, I'm Tim Langston with Red Dog Bushcraft, home of global safety and survival. God bless.